boo, the UCI didn't give Europcar a World Tour license because they didn't give them enough money, and boo, the UCI gave Astana a World Tour license even though they're totally dirty. Rabble, rabble, rabble. Okay, one at a time. As far as Europcar goes, did you guys just not see last week's show where I talked about how all the money in cycling has to come from somewhere? Yes, I realize that financial misdealings might not inflate your sense of moral superiority quite as much as doping, but I assure you they are at least as detrimental. Plus, the monetary requirements for a World Tour license are far, far more objectively inarguable than the ethical ones. I mean, can I get a Walter Sobchak here?
Smokey, this is not Nam, this is bowling. There are rules.
Hey. As regards Astana, the UCI already tried to use the "your team is totally dirty" card to block a World Tour license for Katusha in 2013. Right or wrong, that effort was roundly rejected by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. For all the warm fuzzies repeating this Pickett's charge might instill in the fanbase, I'm pretty sure the six-figure price tag for it could be better spent somewhere else. Especially since the prospective defendant in such a case has almost certainly left larger sums of money floating to the bottom of a barroom urinal. The UCI probably could have done better PR, saying Astana had been granted a provisional license or something similar, although there may be legal complaints with that, I don't know. The point is, the UCI has now created specific standards that Astana can and probably will fail to meet. This in turn creates clear grounds for a license revocation that the CAS will have a much harder time calling grossly disproportionate this time around. Plus, it lets all the stuff currently leaking out about Padua and Ferrari exist as part of a formal decision-making process instead of a, gee, this looks bad. Though I am inherently skeptical of anything reported by the same people who have been telling me Pantani was murdered for the past 6 months. If you want to go and scream on the internet that nothing has changed, you go right ahead. You know, actually, don't, because the only way team suspension used to happen before this is 11th hour gentlemen's agreements, where directors pulled riders publicly linked to scandals. You don't have to be Matthew McConaughey to figure out that the message there is saving face supersedes actual enforcement, and in fact, this action is what opened the door to get Astana into the sport in the first place. I realize that some of you may indeed be simple enough to think that anyone who's doping or enabling doping or even maybe smells funny could just be dragged out into the street and shot, but that's not really how meaningful change happens. Could things be better? Of course, but progress is by definition incremental. When things happen all at once, we tend to refer to it as catastrophe. Now, is there some actual bike racing we can talk about? Yes, in fact there is, and no points for guessing that it involves Enertherm BKCP's Sonic Kant. It's getting to the point where CXairs will have to rename his Like a Voss series, the latest installment of which just dropped, by the way, to Can't Touch This. I'll be here all week. But last weekend, the Belgian and European champion had her hands full with a new arrival. At both Hasselt and Dravencross, some roadie, that's her with the disc brakes and the bunny hops, and also keeping it upright in the mud the next day. Okay, to be entirely fair, Pauline Ferrand-Prévot is not exactly a newcomer to cyclocross, but her immediate, impactful return had definite shades of Zdenek Stybar. And I hear her Rebel-Liv teammate isn't too shabby either. Some chick named Mary Ann or something. Maybe it's time to increase the incentives to get the top female riders into cross season a little earlier, yeah? The men's racing at Hasselt featured Sunweb Napoleon Games' Kevin Powles hanging out with Vosgood Service Golden Palace's Wout van Aert. That is, until the last lap sandpit when the World Cup leader was kinda just like, see ya, kid. Krelon AA Drink Sven Nys was in the second group, but critically lost the final podium spot to Telnet Videa's Tom Meusen, reducing his lead on Powles in the B-Post Bank Trophy Series overall to just over a minute. Dravencross isn't part of an overall series this year, and that's just as well for Nys, who fell back out of the top 20 before DNFing. But the front of the race boiled down to an extremely entertaining 4-up battle, and despite BKC Power Plus's Mathieu van der Poel laying it out on every corner he could find, Meusen made the tactical pass halfway through the last lap and held off the others in the sprint. With the transfer market mostly settled, it's the time of the year when road season schedules start to dribble out. Lotto Soudal's Andre Greipel will be skipping the Tour Down Under, which is just over a month away, don't get me started, so that he can focus more on the classics next spring. Indeed, the Belgian squad could really use some help there, with only Kenny DeHayes' Nokere Corsa win notched in 2014. There seem to be a lot of people changing focus, actually. Europcar's Pierre Roland is skipping the Giro to focus on the Tour, which actually showed excellent foresight since his team probably won't be invited to the Italian race now anyway. And Greipel's teammate and perennial Tour de France outsider Jürgen Vandenbroek is skipping the Tour entirely this year to focus on one-week stage races and possibly a Giro Vuelta double. And finally, Steve Johnson, CEO of USA Cycling, is stepping down after next road season, presumably to focus on answering my email. But regardless, it'll be great to cross him off the list. I'm Cosmo Catalano, and that was the week in bike.